Some hours into Christina Graves's lonely vigil at the computer, she made a discovery. While watching Phoenix sitting on the cliff top, she happened to consult her watch. 7:30. She observed the arrival of the goddess, the night spent in a shepherd's hut, the fight at Dicterion. Then she looked at her watch again. Still 7:30. She shivered right down to the marrow of her bones. It had to be a mistake. The watch had stopped, but she knew that was too simple an explanation. The clock on the wall registered exactly the same time. Stupid woman, she declared after a few moments. Of course, it's 7:30 in the morning. I've been up all night. But no sooner had the thought crossed her mind than she was forced to think again. Darkness hadn't fallen at all. She hadn't had to switch on the light. But this is... While one part of her was trying to come up with a rational explanation for the vice-like stillness around her, another, the deeper part, had raced ahead to a more incredible one. She walked around the house, trying to disprove her own suspicions. But her first intuition had been right. Not only had her watch stopped at 7:30, she had the hall and kitchen clocks, the bedside alarm and the digital displays on the microwave, oven and video. She even switched on the TV, only to see Homer Simpson, hands locked around Bart's throat, forever. I'm going mad. She glanced out the window. A scream froze in her throat. Everything was caught in a freeze frame. Cars, people, clouds, leaves, everything trembling on the cusp of suspended time. She tried the door. The handle and lock were jammed, sealed in that single, timeless moment. 7:30. She had no choice but to return to the computer where the screensaver had clicked on, launching the endless rows of perplexing numbers across the screen. Doing nothing to hold back her tears, she pressed her right hand against the monitor and sobbed out her pain. She was lost, just like John and Phoenix. Maybe you are beginning to understand. There is only one time. The time of myth. It is your time, the time so carefully calculated down to a fraction of a second by sophisticated atomic devices, the time displayed on millions of clocks that is imaginary now. The game is real. Your world is a dream. Time will move forward only when I will it. It was noon next day before Laura and Phoenix reached the foothills of Mount Atlas. Another night had passed without dreams, without the labyrinth. Most of all, without fear. Curious, thought Phoenix. I've started to realize just how deadly the game is, and I'm not scared. I was born to complete this journey. The greater the fear, the greater the reward in facing it down. The same world that is making Laura so angry and afraid is allowing me to breathe again. For the first time since he had arrived at Brownlee, furious at having to leave London, he felt truly alive. Looks like Pan got here before us, he remarked, indicating the feast of meat and fruits laid out on a bronze table. Laura was looking at the inviting fare, but she didn't rush forward like she did the first morning. Something wrong? Laura ran a hand over her face. I need some answers, she replied, unhappiness clouding her voice. You and me both, thought Phoenix. I'm the adventurer, the hero, the Legendeer, but I have entered a vast and very black cavern armed with the smallest of torches. For all my sense of belonging and excitement, I am part blindfolded. There is so much more darkness than light. What is all this, Phoenix? First it's a game, then it's real. The fight we were in. Did we hurt those people? Was it cowboys and Indians or what? She waved her arms at the vastness of the sky. Somewhere out there, my parents are worrying themselves sick about me, and I'm worried about them too. Phoenix lowered his eyes. His too. Sorry, Laura, but I just don't have any answers. He remembered the lifeless eyes of the youth he'd been interrogating, the gathering pool of blood pillowing his head. One thing we've both learned. You can't trust the game. This is a cruel world. Terrible things happen here. Laura sat heavily on a grass knoll, resting her arms on her knees. Do you have to tell me something I already know? I just want to understand what's happening here. Did those people really die? What did Pan say? For the purposes of the game, yes. They died, replied Phoenix. Laura had been asking more in hope than belief. But it was too easy. Are you sure that sickle thing really works? I mean, back home they have war games. They use paint guns and stuff. Even grown men do it. Phoenix gave a scornful laugh. Paint guns, eh? He produced the sickle and brandished it to show the glint of its razor's edge. Set me a test. Laura looked round. That tree. One stroke of the blade and there was nothing but a stump where the sapling grew. Phoenix found himself laughing out loud. What tree? He walked over to the bronze table. Suddenly, there was a storm inside him. Laura wasn't the only one who was worried. Phoenix wanted to smash things, tear them down. Want another demonstration? He brought the sickle down hard on the bronze table, making Laura jump. As it split, the plates of food slid to the center. Satisfied? He glared at Laura. Then, seeing the look on her face, he immediately regretted his show of temper. He'd started acting like Adams. I'm sorry. She accepted the apology with a brief nod. Then there was another question. What about Steve Adams? She asked. What's he up to? If all this is real, then he could have got us killed. I do have an explanation, Phoenix told her. Adams said it was the questionnaire that brought him here. He must have been sent a pack of software just like you. Now the game is following my instructions to the letter. Me as the hero, you as my heroine, Adams as the villain. And Dad, he felt a tug of regret. I put his name down too. He'll be here somewhere. This really is hard for me, Phoenix. You fit in here. I don't. Fit in? Yes, he did. He was the Legendeer. You're doing just fine, Laura, Phoenix told her. The way you handled that sword, the way you saved me from that arrow, the way you've kept your nerve all along. He didn't know how to tell her, but ever since they'd met, their hearts had been beating to a single rhythm. I'd be lost without you, Laura. She smiled. Let's eat. A few moments later, Phoenix was pointing out their next destination with a crust of bread. He pictured the inhabitants of the mist-shrouded slopes, the Grey, sisters of the Gorgons, but bearing no resemblance to the snake-haired predators who lurked in poisonous mists in a cave at the end of the world. 3 Gorgons, powerful, savage, unconquered. 3 Grey, withered, ancient, wretched. The Grey were the wasted remains of their former selves, little more than bags of bones. They lived their lives bickering constantly, forced to share one eye and one tooth. Maybe they dreamed of their sisters and envied them the terror they stirred in the hearts of men. But why do we need them? Laura asked. Nobody has ever returned from the Gorgon's lair to tell of its whereabouts, Phoenix explained. Only the Grey can send us on our way. But why would they betray their own sisters? Because, he answered, without the eye they are doomed to eternal darkness. Without the tooth they will hunger forever. We have to steal the only things that are precious to them. Laura gave him a nervous look. This is going to be grotesque, isn't it? Very. He could almost hear the air shuddering in Laura's throat. Then we'd better get it over with. The image Phoenix had of the Gorgons blazed up again in his mind. He circled the summit of the mountain slowly, peering down through wispy clouds. There was a warning here. Laura clutched his hand even tighter. Something wrong? I don't know. It's this picture I keep getting in my head. No. I've got it. Of course. They're onto our scent. The Gorgons were sniffing the wind. That's how they knew Laura and Phoenix were coming. And the Grey too, if he wasn't mistaken. We've got to land downwind of the creatures. Laura gave him a wary look. If you say so. They edged down the slope towards the 3 marble thrones of the Grey. There! It was them, all right. 3 bags of bones, husks of living things. Toothless, sightless, reduced to arguing over a single eye and a single tooth. They scrabbled and clawed at each other, demanding their turn to see or to eat. One of the twisted beings reared suddenly. "Sisters, what was that?" "Nothing. I know you, you crone. You didn't hear a thing. It was just a ruse to steal away the eye. Calling me a liar, are you, you pathetic worm? It is my turn with the eye." Their fight resumed. "Cheat! Liar!" But then their squabbling broke off again. "No, there it is again. He's coming, sisters. The one who was prophesied. The boy of Seriphos." Phoenix glanced at the startled Laura and winked. He was so alive. "Skirt round there to the left," he whispered. "When I give the signal, I want you to create one almighty commotion." Laura bit her lip, as if he'd asked her to balance the whole world on her thumb, and crept away through the undergrowth. She'd had enough stomach for the street fight. This was a different matter. Phoenix, on the other hand, was in his element. The part he was playing was himself. "I'm coming, ladies. It's I, the boy of Seriphos." The three of them were raised on their haunches, sniffing at the breeze. And all the time they were snatching the eye, taking turns at scanning the mountainside for any sign of Phoenix. "You'll never find the cave of the Gorgons," cackled one. "No torture will break we three," said another. "There is a blood bond here." Laura had got behind them, averting her face. She couldn't bear to look at the malformed sisters. Phoenix drew the sickle and slipped the shield from his back, turning it upwards like a dish. Then he raised his arm and dropped it immediately. Laura started dancing, shouting, yelling for all she was worth. The Grey were falling over themselves to get a look at the strange girl. "Who is it? What's she doing? Where's the eye? Let me see." The eye was being passed from hand to bony hand. Phoenix watched as one twisted claw reached out. Then he leapt forward. "Mine, I think." With a flick of the wrist, he used the sickle like a spatula, tossing the eye and the tooth into the air. "Thank you kindly." He watched the eye roll round the shield and come to a rest in the middle. The tooth rattled beside it. "Now, ladies, time to bargain." The Grey were thrown into a frenzy. "Give them back! You'll pay for this, boy! Wait till my sisters get a hold of you! They will rip you open like a fig!" As Laura shrank back in disgust, Phoenix waited for the sisters' anger to ride itself out. "Now," he said finally, when they had exhausted themselves with their raging and cursing, "the location of the Gorgon's cave, if you please." "It'll do you no good. I don't know why you're in such a hurry, boy." One rubbed her scrawny stomach. "The sisters will give you a fine welcome. Munch you up, crunch you, gobble you up." Phoenix rolled the eye and the tooth round the shield. "Hear that? I could deposit them half a world away. I quite like that idea. You've got good hearing, haven't you? Imagine, you could listen to them as they fall into the sea. Plop! Such a lovely sound." Another frenzy. Then the Grey resigned themselves to defeat. "Very well, we'll tell you, boy, but little good will it do you. Are you in such a hurry to die?" He'd had enough of their abuse. "The location, please, now, or you'll never see the eye or the tooth again." "I'll tell you," said one, "on one condition. I have the eye first." "No!" shrieked her sister. Me! More squabbling. Then bit by bit they spat out the directions to the Gorgon's lair in the land of the Hyperboreans. Satisfied with his day's work, Phoenix tossed them their prizes. "Here." The last Laura and Phoenix saw of the Grey was a tattered mass of rags, scrambling in the mud and the dust, and all for an eye and a tooth. Night fell once more, and Phoenix was at peace with himself. He wasn't afraid. His nightmares had gone, the headaches too. His lifelong torment was over. A meteor flashed over the mountain tops. There was silence. completely unbroken by any sound except the scrape of the crickets. Until Pan put in one of his appearances, that is. Phoenix made himself a promise. This time you don't get away without telling us the truth. You are going to answer my questions. It's about time you turned up, said Laura. A profitable day? Asked Pan. If you mean, have we found the cave? The answer's yes. That's good, said Pan. That's very good. It keeps the game going. Let's see your score. He examined the bracelet. Very impressive. Here, a present for you. He handed something to Laura. A flare? In ancient Greece? You forget, said Pan. This isn't Greece. At least, it is one possible Greece. This is the world of the game. And, as Phoenix had already discovered, you're allowed the odd cheat. That's what makes it so entertaining. It's the wobbles that make the high-wire artist interesting. Pan sidled up to Laura and laid his head against her shoulder. Do you like adventure, my pretty? Laura flinched at his touch. He grinned and sprang back, producing a knife and holding it to his own throat. Back off, he barked in a Chicago gangster voice, or the goat gets it. Phoenix stared. What is this? Maybe Laura's right. He isn't what he seems. Laura simply shook her head at Pan's antics. Then the pair of them gasped. The blade that Pan had pressed against his own throat had produced blood. A single scarlet trickle stringing into the briar-work of hair on his chest. Stop it, said Laura. You're making me sick. Just high spirits, said Pan, staggering. You're drunk, exclaimed Laura. A little tipsy, said Pan, but that's my nature. We can't escape our nature. Can we, Phoenix? Phoenix could only stare, wondering what he meant. Remembering the flare, Laura gave it the once-over and shook her head. But what am I supposed to do with it? I'm sure you'll find a use for it. I hear it will illuminate the blackest night. Phoenix let him prattle on for a while, then launched himself into his questions. What does the owl mean? Pan blinked, clearly taken by surprise. You're an intelligent boy, he said, recovering himself. The owl is the symbol of Athena. I know that, Phoenix retorted. I mean, here, in the game. Now, what do you think it is? Oh, no, Phoenix warned him. You're not fobbing me off. You owe us an explanation. What is going on? Pan inspected his filthy, jagged fingernails casually. The world is turning. Stars flash and mortals wonder. Cut it, snapped Phoenix. He drew the symbol in the dust. The perched owl. I saw it on some soldiers. And that priest, Laura added. And the boy fighter at Dicterion. Pan was acting stubborn. Well, then ask him. I can't. He's dead. Pan yawned. Oh, very well. It can't do any harm. The owl belongs to the game. And if you bear the mark of the owl, then you too belong to the game. Surely you've worked it out by now. There is a world here which dances to one man's tune. There is but one games master. His pawns do as they are told. By terror or by bribery, they do the bidding of their master. And if they refuse, said Phoenix, then they must wear the mark of the owl. If they dare defy the games master's will again, they die. Pan nodded. It is the way of all flesh. Pan made as if to go. One more thing, said Phoenix. Tell me, Pan. Tell me about Uncle Andreas. Andreas, said Pan thoughtfully. Now, I haven't heard that name in such a long time. You visited him, said Phoenix, pressing him. I want to know why. Pan's dark eyes blazed, stabbing deep into Phoenix's soul, branding it with the stamp of fear. If you know Andreas, he spat, then you will find the answer inside yourself. You only have to look. With that, Pan stole into the night.